Talk to me a bit more about what your parents did in terms of that first year after you got out of the nursing home, in terms of helping you.
The first thing they did, and that was right away, when I would blow up, they would just get away. And usually when I blew up, I blew up over everything. I had a hard time with anger issues. I still have a little problem now, but not as bad. Like if I was upstairs in my room, which I spent a lot of time in, and I blew up for some reason and we didn't know what it was, my parents could hear me cursing, stomping. I had a few things I had a filing cabinet. Now it's not there because I beat it up so much because of my anger issues and I couldn't deal with it. Actually, the only one that could deal with me, and he was my best friend through it all, was my dog, LilBit. And
talk to me about your dog.
Well, the funny thing about it is, he was around me 24/7. He was always with me.
Before you got hurt as well?
Well, actually, after I got hurt. Before I got hurt, he would interact with me. He was mostly my parents' dog. But afterwards, he really involved himself. He was always around me. The funny thing is, one time you couldn't close the door to my room because I slept. When I'm out, I was out. I didn't have dreams or anything, but you couldn't wake me or anything. And you had to leave the door open so he could run over to my mom and wake my mom up to go to the bathroom. Well, she closed the door one time, and he couldn't get out to go to the bathroom. Guess what I found in my bed the next morning? And half of it was on me.
What's your dog's name?
It was LilBit. He's gone now. My parents had to put him down.
What kind of a dog was LilBit?
He was a cockapoo.
And do you know how old he was when you got hurt?
When when they put him down, he was about 12. No, he was about 14.
And when was that?
That was in either 2003, 2004.
So he was a pretty young dog when you got hurt?
Yes.
What did you and he do, or what did he do to help you?
He, when I would have one of those anger moments and finally I would calm down, he was right there. You know, he would nuzzle up to me and help me get calm. He was the reason why I would get outside and walk, because I would take him for a walk, and that was good for me to get exercise. Even though I was very slow at it, I would take him out and we'd go for a walk, and he was also a great chick magnet.
Didn't interrupt you much in conversation?
Huh?
Didn't interrupt your conversation much?
No. I do that myself. I get these thoughts. But he was just there for me every reason. He was on my lap, you know. And they say my dad looked up information about seizures and stuff online, and usually dogs can pick them up first because when you're getting ready to have a seizure, your brain emits a chemical that smells like oranges, and a lot of dogs can pick that up. So when I would have one of my staring fits and he was around, he was the first one to either snap me out of it, or when I was snapped out of it, to be right around me.
What would he do to snap you out of it?
He would either bump himself into me trying to get me to pet him, or he would lick my arm to get him to pet him.
Did he ever warn you that you were going to have one?
I don't know. Maybe he was.
Have you had a dog since?
I have a cat now. I've had a total of 5 cats.
How do the cats do in terms of keeping you calm and helping you?
Lucy, the one I have now, does a great job.
What does she do?
She likes to be around me all the time. If I'm sitting there watching TV, she's usually on my lap wanting me to pet her. If I'm in bed going to sleep, she's usually on my chest wanting me to pet her. And so she's become a real big help with that.
Can you, I know your memory is a little difficult for this period, but I'd like you to go back and just sort of imagine that it's the a few months before you went back to Oshkosh to go back to college, and little bits in your life. Just kind of think about that a minute and tell me what it's like to have him there when you're upset.
He literally became my best friend. During this time, I lost a lot of friends because they couldn't deal with me. They didn't know what was going on with me. It was hard to explain. But when I would get upset or angry and he was around, he'd help calm me down. He was there. And he made sure that I knew it, and I made sure he knew that I was always around. And he was a great asset to me. I think that's one of the reasons was when I left to go back to school, he had a hard time with it.
Did you have a hard time leaving him?
Very much so.
Did you think about getting your own dog?
Where I was living in Stewart Hall at University of Oshkosh, or as they call it, the nursing home, because it's all older students, 21 and over. And I was living there, and I never came out of my room. I didn't participate in a lot of things. And my girlfriend would, at the time, she was basically the only friend, and she introduced me to everybody that she had as friends. And if I could have had a dog at Stewart, I would have had one.
Let's talk about, before we spend more time talking about Oshkosh, let's talk about your Louisville friends and the challenges and the problems you had with them in that time before you went back to college.
I lost a few. My best friend, who's actually my dad told me, he was married in, I think, January of that year or something, and I went up for it and I was his best man, from what my dad told me.
So this would have been about a year after you got hurt?
This would have been right before.
Oh, right before, okay.
Right before, because I don't, anything before about 88, my dad has to fill in, even before then probably.
So you stood up for his wedding about 2 months before
I had an accident.
Your accident, and you don't have any recollection of that?
No.
So that's pretty serious whiteout in terms of memory.
Yes.
All right. So you're talking about your friend.
My friend, him and his wife had a really hard time understanding what was going on for me, and had a hard time understanding about the anger issues and all the other issues I was going through. And they just started fading away. I think the last time I saw them was right before I got married, and that was it. I got married my first time.
Okay. Do you remember the mood issues you had during that period?
The issues?
I mean, you're talking about your anger. Do you remember? Do you have any specific recollections of those angers, or what would make you mad, or things that would upset you?
I remember two things. One, I said about the filing cabinet I beat up and there was nothing left. The other one, I'm sad to say, my sister came home and I couldn't. I was down from Oshkosh, if I remember right, and I couldn't take kidding. I didn't know how to understand it. And I slugged my sister a few times. And finally my dad came home and I just left. I went back to Oshkosh because it was my comfort zone.
How old is your sister?
She's 4 years younger than me. She is 36.
Did you hurt her?
I hit her on the back. And I don't think so. But she had a hard time with it because at the time her boyfriend was being abusive to her and I didn't know.
Took us a minute.